Auzu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Dear Facebook viewers all over the world, Assalamu alaikum. Ami Muhammad Ghulam Mustafa from Suprabhat, Sydney. Alhamdulillah, we have finished our third part. Now we are going to broadcast the part 4. So time is going so fast. We started a month ago, and we have finished the 3 major important part about the organ transplantation. Today is the part 4. Organ transplantation in Islam. Organ donation and transplantation are prohibited or not, according to the Islam, according to the Sharia, according to the references of Quran, Hadith, and all of the scholars' opinion, including everything. The researcher, our guest today, Dr. Jan A. Ali, School of Humanities and Communication Arts, Western Sydney University. He is presented in our studio today also, like before. Dr. Jan Ali, he researches all over the part, I think most important part of the Islam, and he has written so many books, very important books, which one is very essential in this life, in this age for the humanity, not only for the Muslim people, it's for all over the humanity. Because we know that Islam, Quran has come not only for the Muslim people, it's come all over the humanity. That's why for all over the humanity, which one is very important, Dr. Jan is researching on that subjects. He has written and published so many books, so many journals. I said to you before also, but who are new today, I am describing for you that his essential books, Islam and Muslim in Australia, Settlement, Integration, Sharia, Education and Terrorism, which one is published from the Melbourne University Press in 2020. And before then, he has written Islam in the West and Islamic Revivalism Encounters the Modern World, a study of the Tablīgh Jamā. This is published from New Delhi, Sterling published in 2012. Now we are going to discuss our topics is that organ transplantation. Organ transplantation is often understood as a process through which health is restored to sick human and concurrently their quality of life improvement. Organ transplantation is a media surgical procedure. So this is the medical term. It's involved with the medical health. So Dr. Jan Ali will going to describe the last part and the 4th part about this one. I think you will become so benefited. We will become so benefited, and all over the humanity will be so benefited about this discussion. And with this discussion, we will get the most essential information, which one is very important for ourselves and for the next generation. I say welcome and say thank you from Suprabhat, Sydney and from Bangladeshi community for joining with us. And I request to start his discussion. Dr. Jan Ali, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam, Brother Muhammad, and wa alaikum assalamu alaikum to everyone. Thank you very much, Brother Muhammad, and thank you for having me, and thank you to Suprabhat Sydney for inviting me to conclude this discussion on organ transplantation in Islam. Today, I will be completing the 4-part series to this discussion with a focus on prohibitive perspective, in that organ transplantation and donation is not allowed. So if you like, the scholars and jurists cite Islamic scripture and say that it contains numerous principles that can be used to denounce organ donation and transplantation. And those scholars who take a prohibitive stance against pardon me, against all or some form of organ donation and transplantation, who cite the authoritative sources within Islam, make equally as compelling arguments as those of their counterparts who actually subscribed to donation and transplantation of organ transplantation. Pardon. One of the premises upon which these scholars and jurists base their argument against organ donation and transplantation is the Islamic principle of self-body nexus. In other words, the body is the self, self is the body. And so we as human beings have got this dichotomy, self and body, that makes us human. Therefore, this forms the basis upon which they determine that organ donation is not permitted. As mentioned earlier in my earlier discussion, one can find in Islam a great value is placed on human life. The preservation of life is an integral part of Islamic faith, as you all know, and as such, Islam treats the body and soul, or the self and body interconnectedness, with a great care and reverence. It is for this reason that Muslims not only believe that there is a special relationship between the self and the body, but treat the self and the body as one, and with great sensitivity and reverence. So the scholars and jurists who subscribe to the prohibition of organ donation and transplantation often relate the Quranic teaching that the body is a gift from Allah, and therefore an individual does not have an ownership claim over the body. The individual or the person is the body and the soul, which together as one is a gift from Allah. Therefore, a human does not own himself or herself at all. If anything, humans have only a custodianship or stewardship claim over their bodies. So all they do, or all we have as humans, is a custodianship, not an ownership over our bodies. This kind of conceptualization of the person is in contrast to the idea of the person in modern secular thinking. So in modern secular thinking, as you will appreciate, where the person is an individual and believed to have independence and the ability to make all decisions relating to life alone, and is the owner of his or her body, thus his or herself. And in modern secular modernity, this is very, very common. You might have heard of people actually changing their sex, changing their body shape, going through plastic surgery, etc., etc. This is all about conceptualizing body or self as independent of anything else, and that one has got independence and ownership over it. A very modern secular way of conceptualizing body, in contrast to Islamic conceptualization of body, particularly the scholars and jurists who subscribe to the prohibition of organ donation and transplantation. From their perspective, the modern secular thinking about bodies in dialectical opposition to each other. Under impermissibility stands for both donating and receiving organs The rationale is that as human beings do not have ownership over their bodies. Bodies are sacred and mere amana, the trust endowed by Allah to humans. In the Quran, Allah mentions that He has endowed humans with all they require in respect to bodily organs. And this is mentioned in chapter 90 or Surah 90, verses 8 to 9. Ibrahim actually talks about this. Let me get this right. So, and I quote Ibrahim 2001, page 53, and he says that this understanding would lead one to infer that man has no right to donate any of his organs, since these organs are not in reality his own, but have rather been given to him as an amana, trust. So the body, the human body, is seen as a unique gift and the trust from Allah, and is his property, that is Allah's property, over which human beings have only responsibility, not ownership. Based on this understanding of the body, organ transplantation is seen as a violation of human dignity, hurara wa kamara, and thus sacrilegious, infringing the bestowed trust and body sacredness. As ruling permitting organ donation and transplantation will cause incalculable harm to human dignity, and therefore such a practice is inexcusable. And Musa in 1998 actually explored this in some detail, and if you want, you can look up his work. Additionally, as saving the life of the recipient will involve either an act of aggression against the human body, which is a harm, or if it is a living donor, putting him or her go through physical pain during surgery, which is a harm. Organ transplantation is impermissible, for harm cannot be reduced by another harm. That is something that the scholars use to declare organ donation and transplantation is not permissible. So one principle is that harm cannot be reduced by another harm. In regard to the cadaver, the dead body, particularly any process of harvesting the organs from it violates the sanctity of it. The violation of the sanctity of cadaveric body, according to the scholars and jurists in this category, is forbidden in Islam. In this regard, a prophetic tradition is often referred to, which says, and I quote, "Breaking the bones of a corpse is similar to breaking the bones of someone who is alive." And you could find this in Al-Sijistani, page 3207. And Ibrahim actually notes that, and I quote, "It is true that Islam forbids any act of aggression against human life, as well as the body after death. Thus, if one were to take an organ out of the dead man's body so as to transplant it into another person, it could justifiably be argued to be tantamount to mutilation of the body and violation of the sanctity of the corpse." End of quote. Ibrahim 2001, page 55. And similarly, Marcotte explains that jurists, and I quote, "jurists and religious scholars appeal to a central Islamic principle that forbids any alteration of God's creation. Human beings and their bodies are creations of God, Khalaq Allah. As creations of God, our bodies are in a sense not completely ours. The main reason for this remains that Islam upholds principles of sanctity or inviolability, that is in Arabic hurma, and dignity karma of the human body that embrace both the living and the dead body. That was a quote from Marcotte 2010, page 35. Yeah, I've got it here. Okay, so self-body construct. Self-body construct and body ownership argument is simple but interesting. It is a persuasive enough argument against organ donation in transplantation, which was popularized by a famous Egyptian scholar, pardon me, Alhamdulillah. Yes. Muhammad Mitwali al-Sharawi, that was his name, in the last decade of 20th century, and Sheikh al-Sharawi advanced a simple but a dazzling argument which ran against the popular assumption that modern technological innovations have rendered Islamic teachings obsolete and captured the attention of Muslims from all walks of life. He argued that human body he argued that humans do not, own their bodies. Their bodies are a trust given to them from Allah. His argument highlights the sacredness of human life and human body being, I quote, the sacredness of human life and human body being a trust from God to be protected and benefit for the public good, end of the quote. And that was from Marcotte 2010, page 34. So he says that the donating the body or its constituent parts will obviously breach this bestowed trust and is unacceptable. His argument was threefold, each based on the principle of Islamic belief. And one was that, and I've got it here, human beings do not have the ownership rights over their bodies as if they were properties. Death is uniting with Allah. And third, the self-body unity is achieved through piety and worship. End of so those three principles upon which the Sheikh developed his argument. So from Sheikh al-Sharawi's viewpoint, organ donation and transplantation is irrelevant and a clear irreverent and a clear violation of this trust. Hence, he aptly poses the question that, and I quote, humans do not own their bodies. How then can they donate or sell their organs? That is found in the end of quote, Ali 2019, page 63. Sheikh al-Sharawi relied heavily on the Quranic concept of suicide and its impermissibility to denounce organ donation and transplantation. Suicide is explicitly forbidden in the Quran, as it says, and I quote, "Do not kill or destroy yourselves, For verily Allah has been to you most merciful, end of quote. That is from the Quran, chapter 4, verse 29. In Islam, like life itself, the body acquires a type of sacralized status. Sorry, I quote. In Islam, like life itself, the body acquires a type of sacralized status. One cannot commit suicide or dispose of one's life or one's body as one pleases, end of quote. And that was from Marquardt, 2010, page 36. He deduced that suicide is an unauthorized, premeditated cessation of life through freely interfering with one's own body, and so places organ donation on the same level. As Islamic scriptures, Quran and Hadith, does not explicitly address the subject of organ donation and transplantation, Sheikh al-Sharawi and other contemporary anti-organ donation and transplantation Muslim scholars and jurists employ various principles in the scriptures to denounce organ donation and transplantation. Just give me 1 second, Brother Muhammad. From a legal point of view, necessity overrides prohibition, which in Arabic is al-darurat tuhbi al-mazurat, is not a sustainable premise for organ donation and transplantation from the scholars who actually reject organ donation and transplantation from their viewpoint. Using this principle to universally endorse all models of solid organ donation and transplantation is problematic from the viewpoint of Muslim scholars and jurists who do not support the practice, arguing that not all organ transplants are necessarily life-saving. For example, kidney transplantation might not be an absolute necessity in light of the existing alternative modalities of renal replacement therapy or preserved life such as dialysis. Using such logic, Muslim scholars and jurists against organ donation and transplantation present an argument that tips the scale against the practice and keep true to Quranic teaching, which places a heavy emphasis on respect and sanctity of the human body. And if anyone wants to actually look in some greater detail, I recommend read Halim, his work, particularly published in 2010. Thus, the scholars and jurists' formalism in the predilection of analogies and directives of interpretation of darura, which is necessity, or a primary life-threatening medical condition, need compel the opponents of organ donation and transplantation and anti-transplantation to arrive at a determination that considers the practice impermissible. As a category, necessity, these opponents argue, is treated to be an exceptionally subjective notion by the medical experts and practitioners, but not so in the particularly formalized jurisprudential dogma. the opponents themselves use and subscribe to. They therefore recommend that alternative to organ donation and transplantation, such as various artificial substitutes and reconstructive devices, should be explored, designed, and used. So, in conclusion, what we can say or deduce is that the scholars and jurists who actually take a prohibitive stance against organ donation and transplantation do so fundamentally on the basis that we as human beings are not owners of our body, and if we are not owners of our body, we have got no right to actually treat our bodies as if we own it. And if we are not owners of our body, then what are we? And Quran and Hadith are both quite clear that we are custodians of our body. We don't own it. Allah owns it. It is an amana, a trust. And so this concept of amana is very important. And scholars and jurists who stand against organ donation and transplantation emphasize this point quite heavily. And it is also very true, is it not, that in the Hadith particularly, we find that when we have entrusted someone with something, or if we actually have assured someone to offer them our trust, then it is actually a serious violation if we don't actually comply with that. And so if we actually breach Allah's rules and regulations, it is quite a serious breach, and scholars recommend against breaching that principle, against breaching that rule, against breaching that responsibility, which is to treat body as an amana, not as a property. So I often give an example about this in our everyday practice, which is that when we rent a property or a house, we cannot paint it, we cannot extend it, we cannot do anything to the property. And if we do want to do anything to it, we have to actually get the owner's authorization, owner's approval. On the other hand, if we do own a property, and if we want to make an extension, we can do so. If we want to change the paint color of the house, we can do that. If we want to actually take a room out and make one room out of two rooms, we can do that because we own the property. So similarly, this kind of principle is used by jurists and scholars who actually subscribe against organ donation and transplantation, emphasizing that the body that we have is not a body that we own. It is a body that is in our custodianship. We don't have an ownership over it. We have a trustworthiness over it. And so we should actually treat the body as such. And so we have got a situation in my presentation from part 1 to part 4, where I have discussed particularly two main positions on organ donation, one supporting and one not supporting organ donation and transplantation. And if anyone is interested in donating organs or receiving organs, I recommend very strongly that they actually do so based on proper information that is available, rather than receiving a fatwa from a particular sheikh who is either in favor of organ donation and transplantation or not in favor of it. The point I'm trying to make is that a decision needs to be based on proper and thorough information. Objective analysis is very important, and individuals must actually exercise critical evaluation of the situation rather than simply accepting as things as it may seem to be, which actually can be a bit of a problem. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for Supravet for providing the opportunity to me to actually present this topic for the last 4 weeks in 4 parts. I very much appreciate it. If anyone is interested in exploring this topic or have got any questions, I would ask Brother Muhammad to put my email address on somewhere, and audience can actually reach me, and I'm quite happy to address their questions if they have any, or recommend them further readings, or recommend them to approach other scholars. Also, last point is that if anyone wants to read my article on this topic, please do so. It is published in Religions, only recently came out last month. So again, Brother Muhammad, if you could put the link, I will appreciate that. Thank you very much, much appreciated.
Okay, Alhamdulillah. Thank you so much, Dr. Jan, for your informative discussion for our community people and all over the human being in the world. Dear audience and viewers, there are so many questions in Islam which has not solved yet. And for this reason, we need to discuss again and again. We need to research it again and again. So a long discussion of Dr. Jan, I believe you got a clear vision on organ transplantation. And if you want to know more, so our all of the series, I mean part 4, 1 to 4, everything you can get on our YouTube channel. And we will put the link and email ID as well. If you'd like to email to Dr. Jan or want to know, you have any question, you want to know more, so you are feel free to ask him. So you will get all of the part for your future study. That's why we will keep it here always for you. And thank you again, Dr. Jan, present your important lecture in our studio and coming again and again. We are very appreciate this one.
Thank you for having me. Much appreciated.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
See you again, inshallah, and
Inshallah.
we will talk to another very important topics next time.
Inshallah.
Thank you all of
Okay,
the
brother.
audience who are with us. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Assalamu alaikum.